Browns continuing preparations for the Dolphins here on Thursday, a battle of 1-5 teams. But Mary Kay, I'm gotta be honest, based on what we heard today, I mean the Browns acknowledge that this season hasn't gone as planned. They're acknowledging that they're 1-5, but as far as the vibes go, I love a good vibes check. This doesn't feel like a 1-5 football team right now.
No, it really doesn't. These guys are really sticking together when it comes to being 1-5. They're all in lockstep. They're singing from the same hymnal and all of those kinds of cliches that we hear at a time like that. At the same time, you see the Titans firing their head coach. You see Tua calling out teammates, even though he apologized for that. They're at 1-5. All kinds of wheels start to come off usually when you're 1-5, but that's not happening here for the Cleveland Browns. Even Bubba Ventrone talked today about the fact that they are really sticking together like glue, all aspects of the team, and he feels because of that they can get this turned around.
Yeah, and Ashley, I think over the course of Kevin's time here, one of the things he's been good at is kind of keeping this team focused on the game ahead, not really thinking too big picture, and I think that has allowed them in a lot of ways to just sort of like, look, the first 6 weeks are done. We're just focused on the Miami Dolphins.
I do think it has rubbed off, and I mean, I even mentioned that on our podcast on Tuesday that the Dolphins' vibes just seem to be significantly worse after those Tua comments. Look, Mike McDaniel's been on the hot seat basically the entire season, it feels like, and I think the Browns just overall seem to be in a better place. So we'll see if that pays off for them on Sunday here.
Now, field conditions were a topic today at Acrisure Stadium. Of course, that field was in terrible shape. Grant Delpit called it, I believe he called it one of the worst fields he played on. He compared it to the field in Washington, which is never a good thing. We know the injuries that have happened on that field, so that's never a good thing when you get compared to that. Joel Bitonio called it embarrassing for the NFL. Mary Kay, obviously the NFLPA has pushed and pushed and pushed for grass fields, but what comes with that, of course, is some sort of standard for the condition those fields are in.
That's right, and we know that Pitt plays on that field. We looked down there; it looked horrible. It was brown and muddy all over the place. Not necessarily wet, muddy, but just patches of no grass whatsoever on that field. Afterwards, while we were writing, we saw them filling in around the perimeter of the field with new sod and things like that. It's like, it is a little bit late for that to be doing this. So, yeah, Joel really went into a very apt description of what it was like with just big chunks of dirt coming up and stuff like that. So it was not an NFL field, and these guys are definitely complaining about it.
Yeah, it looked like one of those fields, whether it was Municipal Stadium or the stadium in Oakland where they used to have the baseball field and they would patch that up. That's sort of what it looked like in Pittsburgh on Sunday.
Yeah, and I think the reason it looked so bad to so many people was actually because Chris Boswell, like one of the best kickers, maybe the best kicker in the game right now, the way his plant foot just slid out from underneath him. And again, I mean, looking out there on Sunday, between the hash marks, just looked like a total mess. I mean, it looked like a field that had too much wear and tear. And look, I think these guys, they are always going to be concerned with playing surfaces. I think it's something they talk about more than fans would expect. I think it's something we're going to hear a lot about after the bye as well, when they have to get ready to go play in MetLife, and that turf in New York is always a hot topic of conversation too.
Now, speaking of conditions, there could be ugly conditions on Sunday, not because of the field. The field might end up in bad shape, but we're expecting rain, we're expecting wind, little outdoor football here, Mary Kay. Browns fans need to cherish this over the next few years, but this is certainly something that could impact this game. We know, especially more than anything, wind can really change a game plan.
Right, absolutely 100%. And of course, Andre Schmidt is going to find out what it's like finally to kick in the weather at Cleveland Browns Stadium or Huntington Bank Field. And we know that the Dolphins traditionally don't play well in these weather kind of games, but I've been thinking about this a little bit. There are so many rookies and young players on this Cleveland Browns football team. They're not used to it either. A lot of them came from Florida and warmer climates, so it's not like they're used to playing in these kinds of conditions either. So we'll have to see how it goes.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a good point. Like, a guy like Carson Schlesinger played at UCLA. Mason Graham obviously played at Michigan, but he's from California. Even Joel Bitonio's a California kid. So a lot of these guys, especially for the young guys, Ashley, these conditions, they're still getting used to them, and it's impossible to predict what that weather will be like, even minute to minute when you're on that lake.
It is, and look, Achane from Miami, I keep thinking about this today. He's a good running back, right? And we've seen teams come in against this Browns team. I think about Dan, you and I were talking about the New Orleans game in 2022 on Christmas Eve where it was freezing, and the Saints came in and got some stuff going on the ground against this Browns defense. And we've seen even in Jim Schwartz's tenure, teams figuring out how to run against the Browns. So if the Dolphins figure that out with a pretty good running back, I mean, that's certainly something you're going to have to be aware of. And I think it's something they might try to do earlier if the weather is bad.
Now, injury-wise, Gage Larvadan was on the field today, likely still in the concussion protocol. This is just part of the process. Cam Robinson, he was on the field again for the second straight practice day, but the two guys we're monitoring, Mary Kay, David Njoku with that knee injury, Jack Conklin, he suffered a concussion. So we're monitoring those two guys. They were not out there at practice today.
Right. And the thing about both Jack and David is the fact that they are such savvy, longtime veterans that if they are cleared to play on Friday and they haven't even practiced, or they just go out there and they're limited and they get a few snaps in on Friday, they can still go out there and play on Monday. In the case of Jack, it really is a matter of the independent neurologist clearing him from the concussion and giving him the green light to play. In the case of David, people have talked all week like, oh, we don't know if he's going to be able to play, right? I mean, we just haven't really gotten that vibe. But he's another one where if he can get himself right by Sunday, he'll be out there.
Yeah, I even think listening to Tommy Reese today, he had a little bit of I don't want to say a giveaway, but there was a little bit of that, I don't know about Sundays. So that's really one of the big with Jack Ashley. That tackle position has been in flux all year. Just both of those guys, they would really miss them.
No, and again, 6 different starting combinations so far for that O-line in 6 games, and it could be a 7th here this week, depending on what happens. And protection was not great against the Steelers. Protection has been an issue all year. So something to monitor again, because I thought Dylan Gabriel, we talked about some of those throws yesterday that looked off. Like how many of those were just because he was coming under fire so early after the ball was snapped. So definitely an issue still for this Browns team.
All right, we will cover everything as the Browns continue their preparations for the Miami Dolphins. You can find it all at cleveland.com/Browns.